This Baron 58 never made it to the runway. Just a few miles from touchdown in Williston, Florida, something horrible went wrong. The aircraft dove almost straight down into the ground. No distress call, no attempt to turn. In the final seconds, it was descending at more than 4,000 feet per minute. Dead straight. No turn, no roll, just straight down into the ground. What happened in that cockpit? Let's see what the data tells us. It was Sunday, the 5th of October 2025. The aircraft, a Beechcraft Baron 58 Papa number November 121 Golf Juliet, departed Lebanon Springfield Airport in Kentucky earlier in the morning. According to flight records, the aircraft was heading to Williston Regional Airport in northern Florida, likely just to refuel. The flight itself was routine, cruising around 17,000 feet on an IFR clearance. The ADS-B trace shows a clean, straight track, no altitude excursions, no speed anomalies. Just a normal hop down through the southeastern part of the United States. Even during the descent into Florida, there was nothing to suggest trouble. The track remained smooth all the way to the edge of Williston's airspace. Then, below 1,300 feet, things changed, and they changed fast. This is where things get strange. From about 1,300 feet above the ground, the Baron just drops. In roughly 33 seconds, it plunged from 1,300 feet to 400 feet. At its maximum, it was descending over 4,000 feet per minute. Not a glide, not an normal approach, but a high energy dive. The track stays almost laser straight. No swerve, no struggle, no turn towards a road or an airfield. There's no evidence of a stall spin. It's more likely just a ballistic dive. The aircraft impacted a peanut field, just a mile or so short of Williston Regional Airport. Photos taken immediately after the crash shows a high energy nose down impact. The debris track extends back in a straight line, suggesting the aircraft was moving fast and on a shallow track when it hit the ground. The cabin and the wings were burned beyond recognition. Yet one thing stands out in the wreckage: the tail. In multiple footage, the elevator trim tab appears to be deflected down, which on this aircraft means the elevator was trimmed nose up. Because the trim tab is mechanically linked, this doesn't move after impact. If it deflects down like this, it was set before the airplane hit the ground, before impact. Was this a last-minute effort for the pilot to save the plane from crashing? Or could a failure in the elevator system have forced the airplane into a nose-down attitude, while the trim was set opposite? We'll circle back to that in a moment. On the day of the crash, the weather around Williston was changing fast. About 35 minutes before the impact, the META from Williston reported scattered clouds at 2,300 feet and eastern winds of about 10 knots. Roughly the time of the accident, winds had increased, gusting to around 17 knots, and scattered clouds were down to 2,200 feet with thunderstorms approaching in the distance. In other words, VFR conditions were still in motion, but potentially a bumpy and distracting ride. The airplane was apparently skirting on the outer edge of a rain cell. But according to ATC recordings, there were no active weather in the immediate vicinity when the crash occurred. So while weather was worth noting, there's no indication that it was the primary factor for this crash. Let's take a closer look at the aircraft itself. The Beechcraft Baron 58 Papa is a pressurized twin-engine piston aircraft with a service ceiling over 25,000 feet and a seating for up to 6 people in club configuration. It's designed for speed and altitude. This particular aircraft, November 121 Golf Juliet, was manufactured in 1976, so it was nearly 50 years old. Age itself is not necessarily an issue. Barons are known for being robust, smooth flying airplanes when properly maintained, but they are still complex machines. This one has retractable gear, a pressurization system, turbocharged engines, and, in case of the 58 Papa, also a heavier airframe and a higher workload than a non-pressurized model. Pilots who fly these aircraft need to manage the system carefully, especially during approach and landing. If something fails in the control systems, say a trim runaway or broken elevator tap, then the workload increases dramatically. And because you're dealing with two engines and several advanced systems, an emergency in one of the systems can quickly cascade into another. So, what could cause a descent like this? The available data leaves us with two broad possibilities. Either the airplane suddenly became uncontrollable, or the pilot was unable to respond. Let's examine the mechanical side first. Could a mechanical failure, for example a broken elevator cable or a damaged elevator hinge, force an airplane into a nosedive? In a twin airplane with lots of power, losing pitch authority could be catastrophic. An elevator jam can overpower a nose-up trim, leaving the pilot with only limited pitch control. A jamming failure would also explain why the pilot might crank up the trim in a full nose-up position in a desperate attempt to try and recover. However, there is no direct evidence that suggests such failure yet. The airframe was nearly destroyed in the post-crash fire, making it hard to verify mechanical issues. Investigators will, of course, be examining the control cables, trim actuators, and autopilot servos to see if they malfunctioned and caused a nose-down position of the aircraft. The other possibility is pilot incapacitation. Medical events like heart attacks, strokes, even severe hypoxia can incapacitate a pilot in seconds. And if the pilot slumped forward even briefly, he might have unintentionally pushed the yoke forward, pitching the airplane nose down. Engine thrust would keep the speed up, and with no one to recover, the airplane would continue to descend rapidly, even with the trim being in a nose-up position. Adding to this theory is also the radio silence. There was no mayday call and no acknowledgement of an uncontrollable descent. The last voice ATC heard from November 121 Gulf Juliet was earlier in the approach, and it was a remark about weather conditions that indicated that nothing unusual was going on. So if the pilot became incapacitated after that transmission, the flight could have continued in the ground without further radio communication. This flight was supposed to be routine, a quick leg down to Florida for refuel. Yet somewhere in those last moments, something terrible went wrong. No distress call, no turn, just a steep straight descent. Three people lost their lives with no time to respond, no chance to recover. Accidents like this remind us how thin the margin can be between a normal flight and catastrophe. As investigators comb through the wreckage and data, we'll hopefully learn more. Until then, we can only try to piece together the clues, like the trim tab, the descent profile, and the weather, and hopefully try to understand what happened. If you found this breakdown helpful, please give it a like and also consider subscribing. My goal is to reach 500 subscribers within the year, so every click makes me get closer to that goal. And while you're at it, why not leave a comment and say what you think happened in this incident? Was it mechanical, medical, or something completely different? Let me know. I read every response. So thank you for watching. Stay safe and stay curious. Until the next one, see you there.